how are you finding builders are dealing with some of the price increases I'm hearing about due to the fuel shock and the war we're facing now? Is that having much impact on them?
It's very interesting. Like, to be honest, the real impact that we observe is much less than what we forecast. I'm not saying that there is no impact. There is impact. Like, we see an average about 3 to 4% increase because the distraction cost on the other side of the world. But that 3 to 4% normally is a big impact already, right? So, but what we observe is the builder sort of having the mentality saying that, okay, yeah, we will absorb that, right? We will reflect that in our future price, and we will move on. The real impact in on the construction from this time is much less than the impact caused after pandemic, right? And I think it's sort of, to a certain extent, it's probably like builders sort of experience the pandemic, which is big impact. Like, you literally have some of the price doubled in just a 6 months time. Right, and they sort of build up that resilience in their mindset, and saying that we expecting the same thing to happen again, right? And when they actually see the impact is about like 3 to 4%, and most builders are like, okay, not as bad. Let's move on. But if we're looking at that, that's also a sad story, isn't it? Right,
Yeah.
for an industry to take a hit twice
Yes.
in over 2 years.
Well, and I think that what I'm hearing about and is happening in the larger end of town is that unfortunately funding and the banks, and if we just take residential building as an example, they force fixed price contracts. And the reality is that a fixed price contract is what destroyed most of the construction industry during COVID. You're right that there's been built a different resistance and a better understanding of the numbers, and so this shock is not as bad. But I think I'm seeing that sometimes it's possible to negotiate with the customer or the end user that these are the variations we're facing in this project, and we need to look at meeting somewhere in the middle. Otherwise, it can't be complete. Are you seeing many builders negotiating with their contracts in light of these price increases?
Yeah, we see that happen everywhere, right? From the contractors to the builders, this is reflecting in their new code already, right? So definitely this one is happening, right? And but I also see there's a mixed market, right? What I mean by that is we hear on the news, in the media, that the housing market, the price is falling, it doesn't look good. And we do observe in a lot of residential areas, there are less investment. That what that means is in the market it become more competitive, right? There's builders competing for fewer jobs. So on one side, most builders that we talk to, contractor we talk to, they have the awareness that the price need to increase to reflect the cost. On the other side, they also facing a hyper competition where you always have people that will try to get the job first, worry about the profitability later. And these builders, these players are not going to be in the market for long. Normally, you give them 5 years. However, the distraction would be caused by their behavior, right? That's the reality. So what we like is and it happens in different areas. This year it happens in resi, right? Last year it happened in commercial. A lot of commercial projects was slow starting or delay in last year. So a lot of commercial contractor struggled last year. So what we normally suggest people do in this scenario is do the scenario test of your business. What if scenario? What if there are no new project that we can land it in the next 6 months? What is the cash flow going to look at? Right. And start creating the plan now when we still have the money. And whether it's setting up a new facility that can support the working capital, support some spending, or we start looking at saving the cost, changing the team structure earlier, have the plan, understanding how much a redundancy will cost us. And that's important to have that in plan, right? It's not saying that we are going to trigger any of these plans, but the key difference is whether you need to prepare a plan under crisis, or you actually have the plan. So you start building up the reserve to prepare for the worst scenario, and that's a big difference.
Yeah, and I'm seeing I've got an example in the software industry where AI is making changes, and when I recently spoke to Nigel, one of the situations were the cost of redundancy and restructuring your workforce can be very expensive, and particularly in immediate cash flow. Like the long-term returns are there, but hey, if I restructure my workforce and replace X number of people with whatever, I've got a big upfront cost to actually change that. While my long-term outcome is going to be great, it can have a big impact on cash flow at that time. And if you move early, you've got the liquidity and so forth to be able to deal with that issue. But if you're doing it when things are already tight, you get a situation where it's cheaper to keep paying them than offer them redundancy. So it's an awkward situation many people face.
Yeah, absolutely. That we do find that normally is a big challenge, right? Managing the HR, managing the redundancy. What I notice here is a lot of times people put that to the last on the to-do list because of the emotional feeling. They're feeling bad of letting the people go. So they tend not to dealing with that problem until they don't have other resource. But unfortunately, in this scenario, what we're talking about is if you don't have other resource, then that means that you probably don't have the reserve to even make the money capital that you need for this redundancy.
We both know as being leaders and running our own businesses that unfortunately you do have to make hard decisions sometimes, and particularly in small business. Staff members almost become family. It's things get very close in a smaller business, and it gets very, very hard to make those decisions. I know I've had to do it in the past, and it's just natural human nature to make it the last thing on the list because it keeps getting pushed down to the bottom of the to-do list because it's not only financial pain, but it's emotional pain. But if you don't care about your employees and don't have that emotional pain, then perhaps you're not that good an employer in the first place, I suppose.